Our Lord once again shows in this encounter where he's here at the synagogue in Capernaum, he manifests, that's actually the next morning that it's really highlighted, is his fidelity to his Father's will. It would have been, from a human point of view, so easy to stay there because they wanted him to stay there. I mean, he basically everybody liked him. And this is powerful for us. We want to, be around people who like us. There's nothing wrong in and of itself with this, but it can become a real snare to us and prevent us or actually knock us off track. It can make us forget what we're supposed to do, or it can lead us to forgetting our mission. Our Lord never allowed this to happen because his primary focus was always what his Father wanted him to do and why he was sent here, what his purpose for being here was. It's not that he dismissed, the people's affection, but he never let that become a snare to him. I want to use this to focus on how important it is when we reflect on somebody like St. Joseph, because if you pray the litany, of course, there's many gems, as it will, angles to a diamond that describe what Joseph was like. But one that stands out for me in this context is Joseph most faithful. He was somebody God could rely upon. When Joseph made it a commitment, he stuck with it. And that's not easy to do. And we see this, whether it's in priestly vows or marriage vows. A lot of people, marriage, divorce, and so on. And even like after the council, the bleeding of the priesthood was gross. It was horrible. It was evil. And I'm not saying every person who left was, should have been faithful to their priest or should have remained an active priest. I don't know. I'm not in a position, to determine that. But I was taught by my father, when you give your word, you keep it. That was my dad teaching me that before the church, required it of me. My dad taught, when you give your word, you keep it. Now we call it the old ways, It's not the old ways, it's the always ways, right? The older people taught me, my father when I was a kid. But these are things that are essential for our life. And Joseph is somebody who God, as I said, could rely upon. He was faithful to his purpose, to his mission in life, and that was to be the spouse of Mary and to be the father of Jesus, the human father of Jesus. And he was his father. He wasn't his blood father, but he was legally his father. And so our Lord actually acquired a title from the tribe of Judah because of Joseph. So Joseph was his father. Joseph was tasked with caring for this child and this woman to be his wife, this child, so that he could grow and be safe and go on to do what God wanted him to do. And you and I they model faithfulness for us. Our Lord models it for us, and Joseph models it for us. And this is so important for us because each one of us, even myself at my age in life, I still need to look to these people, for example. I need to look to our Lord all the time. And I need to look to the saints for their example of how they persevered. They were faithful. And life for them was not always easy. I'm reading if you're listening to Father Mike in the Bible in a year, he's going through Jeremiah now, and I'm thinking, Jeremiah, oh my gosh. This man he's the prophet of tears. He's referred to as the prophet of tears because he mourned so much for the people who were stubborn and arrogant and so full of themselves. But he was faithful. He could have just walked away and said, why do I bother with you morons? You're just a bunch of creeps. You hate God. You say you love him. He could have done all that kind of stuff that we're tempted to do often. But he didn't. He was faithful. And that's so I'm listening to Jeremiah. He had every reason to run away, but he was faithful. And it cost him his life because they murdered him. He's really a martyr, as was Isaiah and the great prophets. So you and I should look to these individuals, and particularly St. Joseph was faithful to God, even though he didn't understand many things, that God wanted him to do, like go to Bethlehem and he couldn't find an inn. And we sort of romanticize that now, but you can imagine him saying, what's the problem here? I'm supposed to be here, for our own purpose, sort of meditations. Joseph may have been tempted, like, why shouldn't I just have a room, for my wife and child? But that's not what God wanted. He wanted a cave. Then the wise men come after his birth, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and then he's warned by an angel, you got to get out of town. Like, why are you doing this to us? But he doesn't do that. And actually, he gets gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Okay, that's a wonderful thing that the child gets, but God sees that he's going to have to go into Egypt and he's going to need money. Startup money, we call it. Where is he going to get it from? Gold. God was providing for his son, even though Joseph didn't know at the time, for the exodus into Egypt. So Joseph was a man of faith. He was faithful to his commitment. And this is something for you and me to reflect on and ask God to help us. Whether we're ensconced in our commitments already, it doesn't matter. Or you may be wavering in your commitments. We all need to ask on a daily basis, Lord, help me to be a man or a woman of faith. And not only a man or woman of faith, but to be faithful, to be true, to persevere in my commitment. And not just going through the motions, but to do it for love of you. And we need to renew this every day. Just like we need to renew the sleep cycle every day, we need to renew our fidelity to God, our commitments, and pray that he would infuse those with his own love so that we are not just empty shells going through the motions, but that we're doing this for love of him as he is so faithful to us. So Joseph is a wonderful example. These are some things that you can do to cultivate devotion to St. Joseph on Wednesdays. Read about St. Joseph in the Gospel of Matthew. Just go for a few minutes. Just read a few lines about St. Joseph. Maybe spend 10 minutes praying before an icon of St. Joseph. If you don't have one, get one. Or even get a holy card, which is really simple. Pray the litany of St. Joseph. I do that every Wednesday. And I've done it for years. I don't know if I started it because of St. André Bessette, because he was so devoted to St. Joseph. And everybody in Quebec knows this, even those who don't go to church. They know that he was devoted to St. Joseph because of St. Joseph's oratory. I actually, I don't do it every Wednesday, but, have a Mass in honor of St. Joseph for Wednesdays and attend it. And then maybe even get together with friends and discuss and talk about St. Joseph and why he's so important, or how we can be somebody who's integral to our spiritual life. This is the advice of one of the great saints, the great Saint Teresa. She wrote about Joseph and said, I cannot call to mind that I have ever asked him at any time for anything which he has not granted. She lived, we know that Teresa lived a vow of great poverty, and Joseph was always there for her. So today, let us ask St. Joseph to really help us be men and women not only of faith, of the faith, believe in the Catholic faith, but also faithful to what God has called us to in life. Look to him often.